Andrew, it's the end of March. We've been talking about the NFL TV booths for weeks. I thought finally we were going to be done, and you broke yet another story.
It's never going to be done. Kevin Burkhardt going to be doing 2 of the next 3 Super Bowls, and we got a lot of March Madness to talk.
My goodness, what a contest!
And we're back, the Marchand and Ourand Sports Media Podcast. He's John Ourand, the media reporter for the Sports Business Journal. I'm Andrew Marchand, sports media columnist for the New York Post. John, let's do it. Who's up? Who's down?
Who's up? Who's down?
Kevin Burkhardt gets my who's up. How could he not? He's going to call 2 of the next 3 Super Bowls. He replaces Joe Buck at Fox as their lead NFL announcer. We'll get into who his analyst possibly could be later. But listen, the outpouring for Burkhardt was all over the internet. He's known around New York because of his time with FAN and WCBS, Sirius XM, SNY, of course, as a great guy. And the interesting thing about him, 20 years ago, he wasn't thinking about getting out of the business, but he's trying to make ends meet selling Chevys in New Jersey. And then he got his big break, first WCBS radio, doing updates, then FAN, and then the SNY thing led to these big things. He also did Cowboys games for Compass before he ended up at Fox. And now Joe Buck leaves. Who would have thought that Kevin Burkhardt would be doing 2 of the next 3 Super Bowls? But well-deserved, and I think he'll do a good job.
Likable guy. I took notice of all the comments on Twitter when after you broke that story. I'm going to go who's up. I'm going to give it to Jim Delorenzo. He's the guy who's running the sports department at Apple. And I'm giving him the nod because of Coda, which won Best Picture at the Oscars on Sunday. So give me a second. I'm going to tie all this around to sports.
Exactly.
Media.
All right, let me see. Put a bow on this.
I promise. All right, Apple launched Apple TV Plus just over 2 years ago. And this Oscar win pretty much ensures that it's going to continue to bet on video. And I expect, and I know you expect, that sports is going to become much more important to Apple as it continues to bet on video. So it's not that I thought Apple started wavering in any way, but expect the success of Coda to make Delorenzo's job at sports a lot harder. And the reason is that the entertainment side of the business just proved that it could deliver on its vision that it promised to Tim Cook. Can Delorenzo do the same with sports? We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll talk about their schedule a little bit later, starting with the Mets and Nationals, and how that will work out for Apple TV Plus. All right, my who's down, Grant Hill. Now, last year I had him on the way up. I thought he was really good. First 2 rounds, he worked with Ian Eagle, 2-man booth, enthusiasm, information. And look, Grant Hill's kind of representing that number 1 team for CBS. It's not bad. We'll talk about it in a little bit. It's just not good. I just find like Hill hasn't taken that step forward that we were seeing last year. And they've been together for 7 years, and granted, they only work 1 month a year, and then they take 11 months where they probably don't even see each other, which makes it difficult. But Grant Hill has not kind of gone that next step. He was going so far forward last year. Now, again, not bad, just not like where you want Grant Hill to go in his development as a analyst in the 3-man booth with Nantz and Raftery.
3-man booths, those are tough, Andrew. They're totally tough. And the Elite 8, a lot of blowouts. So it makes it even harder to call a good game there. I'm going to go who's down. I'm going to go back to the RSN well, as I have a lot of times in the past. Here's a scene. It's the middle of a timeout with the Warriors. The Heat coach, Eric Spoelstra, and 2 players, Udonis Haslem and Jimmy Butler, get into heated shouting matches. They have to be separated from each other. Spoelstra takes his clipboard and slams it onto the ground of the court. Everybody saw this video. It was a viral video. The Golden State Warriors RSN clipped it and put it out there. Everybody saw it except for fans of the Miami Heat who are watching on Bally Sports in Miami. The team decided that the hometown viewers shouldn't have to see something that they felt portrayed the team in a negative light. So who's down on my list? I'm going to give it to Lorrie-Ann Diaz. She's the Heat's VP of Business Communications, and she's the one who told the Miami Herald that it was a team's decision, and she seemed to intimate that they would make this decision going forward. And Andrew, we've talked about this in the past. It's a decision that makes no sense. Teams are trying to draw fans. They're trying to get younger, and they want to keep a viral video off their air, sending viewers to other outlets to see it. This right here is the problem when you get teams and leagues trying to control their own content.
You're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to put a lid on it, and you're going to lose all credibility in the process. And the idea you can control all information in the internet age is ridiculous. It's short-sighted. Like I get it. When teams and leagues own these networks, there is a desire to be like, why are we paying people? And then they're going to criticize us. But if you want to be trusted, if you want to make your network a place that people want to turn to, you have to do that. And when you don't, you're just going to shine more light onto these issues, and you look bad in the process.
Andrew, in the late 1990s, as like almost 30 years ago, the Orioles fired John Miller, a beloved radio announcer who basically said when the Orioles didn't play well, he mentioned it, he treated his audience like they were adults. I have friends, diehard Orioles fans, that stopped supporting the Orioles the second they let go of John Miller.
Wow.
And just never went back to Camden Yards. You have a contract with your fans, and that really hurts it.
I like those friends. You should base all your decisions off of sports media. Everything you should decide in your life should be based off of something dealing with sports media, but they haven't come back since.
Well, now the DC has the Nats, so they were very happy to get somebody else to cheer for. So
the Nats are straightforward. All right, we'll have to look into that.
I don't know if they're straightforward, but John Miller was somebody that was really beloved. Really
Aren't the Nats and the Orioles? They're the only ones not going on the road in all of baseball.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? That was a who's down from last week. In fact,
That's not good.
Andrew, let's move on straight to the topics, and let's talk about your story. Kevin Burkhardt taking over, number one play-by-play announcer for Fox Sports. I have a couple of questions. We, based off your reporting and stuff that I've heard as well, it was kind of expected that Burkhardt was going to step up into that chair. What's going on with the analyst beat?
Greg Olsen is the guy to beat in that spot, right? So if you're Fox, you're looking at it like you have Greg Olsen, he's your number two. We know he's there, and we can figure out, do we need to, rip up his contract, change that up? He's not getting that Aikman, et cetera, money, Romo money. He's only in his second year. If I were him, I would take a deal. I take what they offered and do really well, 2 of the next 3 Super Bowls, and the money is going to be there in the future. And especially with the other things he wants to do in the podcast world, it's what a platform he would have. So I just think you want to get that job. I wouldn't personally, you want to get paid somewhat what you deserve. But remember, when Romo came in, he made $3 million to $3 to $4 million a year for his first contract. So to me, that's sort of the range now where you're Greg Olsen, maybe you might shoot for. I think he's about 1.7 million from Fox. So maybe a little bit of a raise, but you want to get that job. That said, I think that they're looking around a little bit. They don't feel like there's nobody else. Everyone else, all the chairs are filled in terms of the number one analyst. So someone, if you want a wild card, Phil Rivers is someone who has repeatedly shown he doesn't want to do it, but I do think Fox would like to hear what he sounds like. He's a guy. Sean Payton, there's been reports of him doing it. I don't see that. I think they look at him more as a studio guy, maybe in that number 2 spot. I don't see how you could go Sean Payton over Greg Olsen, and even Phil Rivers over Greg Olsen. I'm not sure you could do that. When you put a rookie in there, as good as Kevin Burkhardt is at setting up his analyst, you're taking a chance in the Super Bowl year.
Fox has always viewed itself as having the deepest bench. You took their number one team, which is Buck and Aikman, put them over at ESPN. You promoted their number 2 team, Burkhardt and Greg Olsen. They're now going to be the number 1 team, most likely.
I just want to interrupt you there just because I don't want to, like Burkhardt, we were talking last week, kind of knew it's going to be Burkhardt. I think it probably will be Greg Olsen, but I don't think that's a definite. I think there's other people. The other one people talk about is John Lynch. I don't think that's happening. The 49ers GM work with Burkhardt previously. Those two are tight as well, but he said no to Amazon right away after one dinner when they came after him. I'm talking about Lynch. And then I just don't see it. I think he's committed to the middle of free agency, and he's that type of guy. Although this 2 Super Bowls in the next 3 years, possibly doing this for the next 20 years could be something that, you would think could interest Lynch, but I think he's committed to the 49ers.
Said no after one dinner. Where was that dinner?
I think the dinner was at his house, actually.
Oh, I thought he invited them over. Great. All right,
Put me on the spot, asking me where the dinner was. I didn't know where the dinner was. I think it was at Lynch's house.
It could have been like at a McDonald's, and it would be like, I'm out, guys. Who is poised to step in to be the number 2 team at Fox?
All right, so there are some choices. I would say Adam Amin is in there. Joe Davis is in there. Joe Davis is likely another one pretty much expected. He's going to be replacing Joe Buck on the World Series, working with John Smoltz. So Joe Davis is someone who can move into that number 2 slot. Gus Johnson, wild card, who's number 1 college football play-by-player. Could they move him to the NFL? I don't think so. I think they'll keep him on college and just do some NFL like they did in previous years. But if I were to guess, I probably right now would go Adam Amin getting that number 2 slot, maybe Davis. I think if you're looking at what Fox is doing, Brad Zager, their executive producer, has added these guys the last couple of years. If you look at the turnover at Fox over the last few years in the announcer, play-by-players, especially, and analysts on NFL, they've changed things. And I think if you look at what the situation that some of these networks have gotten into, where they just kind of have everyone do all the big events, and Fox had that with Joe Buck. He was doing the Super Bowl. He was doing the World Series. When they had golf, he was their main golf guys. Nantz at CBS, same thing with Jim Nantz. They have Nantz doing the top games for the NCAA tournament, even though he doesn't do the basketball all year. He's with Rowe on the NFL. And then, of course, where he's best at is golf and the Masters, et cetera. If you're a network, it used to be you spread it out a little bit. And I just think where cost is, that probably might make your cost a little bit easier. You can defer it a little bit, even though you're paying 3 people. In theory, when they're doing, if you have 3 different people, maybe you don't have to pay them as much each to do that. And I just think you protect yourself a little bit more. You don't get in that situation where you have one person. So to answer your question, that's why I probably think Amin could be Davis. I think Davis might be better in football than he is on baseball, but I like Adam Amin a lot too. So I didn't answer it fully because I don't know. I don't think they know. So that's one of those things.
But you gave the names, but you didn't mention any analysts. Who's sitting there possibly to slip into the number 2 chair as the analyst?
Yeah, let me also mention Kevin Kugler, who they like. I don't think he'll get it, but I think he's worth mentioning. They also have Kenny Albert, who's been at that number 2 slot. I don't think he'll get it, but he's doing fine with the Stanley Cup. So they're deep. Then the analyst side, look, someone they like a lot is Mark Sanchez. I'm not saying he's going to get it, but if you were to ask me someone who's kind of on the way up in their eyes, Sanchez is someone. I think John Vilma is someone they would consider as well. He worked with Kenny Albert. I think Sanchez is someone I think to watch internally. Now, could they go externally? Could they try a Sean Payton? The problem with Payton is he's kind of shown an inclination that he wants to coach. So you're going to spend all this time, pass over other people, and he's going to go coach the Cowboys in a year. So I think that hurts Payton a little bit, even though now he's kind of backtracked and that's, no, maybe I'll be in TV forever. And maybe he will. But I think he's more of a studio guy.
The headline to me, Andrew, is that free agent frenzy has been downgraded. It's no longer a frenzy, but there's still some movement and these stories aren't going to end.
What is it then? You got to give me an alliteration. It's a fracas, a free agent. What we got?
Oh, fracas. I like that one. That's good.
Free agent finale. It never is over, though. It hasn't percolated for a long time. In terms of this type of movement. And he had the Romo contract, but he just stayed at CBS. And that was kind of a frenzy because ESPN was going after him, but he ended up staying at CBS. I don't know if these jobs will, they might change over a little bit more than they have in the past. Those older guys have kind of held on to those jobs forever. And a lot of them are great. Al Michaels is great. Obviously it loosens it up a little bit. And I think, networks, they have to look at what they're doing and figuring things out as we go forward, especially with what they're paying these guys. You got to be worth it. You got to be doing a good job. Like you start making 15, 18, 12 and a half $1 million. All these guys, Collinsworth, Aikman, Romo, you better produce. You better do a good job.
One of the complaints I consistently hear from TV executives is that it's so hard to develop young talent because there's no young talent. I consider Kevin Burkhardt sort of like a young play-by-play guy, and he's in his late 40s now.
He's 48.
Yeah, exactly. That's not. Well, it's young to me. It's young to me.
These guys have hung on forever. I mean, again, Al Michaels is great, but he's 77. This contract will take him to 80. And so with Amazon, this is a great job. I mean, Jim Nantz. He's these days age is different, but he's going to be, I think, 63 this year. Someone like Ian Eagle's in his 50s, he's not it's not old necessarily. As all of us get older, we're all like, oh, that's not old.
That sounds young now.
Yeah, exactly. When I was 22, I don't know if I'd say 50 somethings, I would say that's, but the people are healthier, living longer. You only work 5 months a year. So Kirk Herbstreit's going to have a busy schedule, but okay, come January the 20th, he's done, right? There's no more college football. There's no more NFL for him. And then you don't start up for real until August. So it's a pretty good gig.
Who's going to pitch us that story about how busy he's working? Is it going to be ESPN PR or Amazon PR? Which one? Prediction.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not writing that. That's
all right. Let's go.
He will be working hard. That will be a lot. That's going to be interesting to watch because it is a lot to know, and doing these games a little harder than people think. But Crimea River, flying private jets, and he's making a lot of money. And again, it's half a year. So, but he will be working hard.
All right, let's go into the next topic, which is the NCAA tournament, which for me, if I'm CBS or I'm Turner, the viewership has been up, of course, but it's everything they wanted. It's a ton of upsets and then a Final Four filled with blue bloods. How do you view everything that's transpired over the past couple of weeks?
Well, first off, props to us now for knowing what blue bloods are, because a couple of podcasts ago, we were debating what blue bloods are.
It's not Kentucky bluegrass.
That's what it's called. That's why?
No. That's what I suggested.
Possibly. Oh, yeah. No, it's because of these like the top notch, basketball programs are known as the blue bloods. Yeah. So they got CBS, Turner, well, especially really Turner, because they have the Final Four, TBS. Yeah. You couldn't ask for more. You want those great stories. St. Peter's is one of the great stories of all time. Get that, but you don't want them in the Final Four if you're TBS. If as great a story, that one might have penetrated, I think, but you really want North Carolina, Duke. Those are the two heavyweights. Those are the teams people know. And what a story, getting Coach K in there. Those numbers are going to be really amazing, I think, for Turner. A lot of interest.
Amazing for Turner. I am curious, though, because it always comes down when it's on cable compared to when it's on broadcast television and CBS. This Final Four has such tradition-rich teams that consistently bring the biggest ratings. I mean, Duke Carolina was the biggest audience during regular season by far for college basketball. I'm curious to see where it does fall.
I will say it's still, for whatever reason, maybe this shows my age. When it's on CBS, it feels bigger to me. With all due respect to my friends at Turner, it just does. It feels bigger when it's on broadcast TV.
I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think that there are a lot of younger cord cutters that probably agree with you because you can finally watch it.
All right. So what have you thought of the broadcast?
The broadcast has been sort of uneven. I feel bad because the Elite Eight games were all blowouts. I think that's very difficult to do it. One thing that I've noticed, though, and I know Ian Eagle is the hero of the Twitterati. Social media loves Ian Eagle. You and I think that he's the best basketball play-by-play person in this tournament right now. I've been doing Twitter polls about the announcers, and Ian Eagle wins everyone going away. I almost want to take him out of the polls to see sort of how everybody else falls out.
I wrote this last year. I think he should do the Final Four. I think he might be, I said this the other day on Twitter, he might be the best basketball play-by-player going. I mean, I think it's him and Mike Breen, and then the next levels below. He just brings the energy that I don't think you get with Nantz. Like, and my thing with Nantz in that 3-man booth, it doesn't feel like fun. It's not, Jim Nantz he doesn't make big mistakes. But it's just, there's nothing special about it. Like Jim Nantz really built his reputation on doing the Masters, on being a host. That's where he's best. Now, he's been a play-by-play guy for a long time. There's just no oomph there with Nantz that I find. And it's not as fun. And I think, I mentioned Grant Hill at the beginning, that 3-man booth, you got Rafter. It's just there's just not as much enjoyment when you're watching the game as when you have an Eagle and a Spinarco, or last year, Eagle and Grant Hill.
Last week on this pod, we highlighted Andrew Catalon, who was called a cheerleader getting a basketball that was lodged in the basket. Jim Nantz had a similar call this week. Let's listen to it.
Bring out the sweeper.
We saw this earlier in the tournament, a cheerleader for Indiana.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they are.
Oh, there we go.
How about that?
A great moment here for
I was going to volunteer.
Razorbacks.
I was going to volunteer you. I know you can get up there.
We'd be here for a while.
In my era, there was a guy named Jumpin' Jackie Jackson. Could take a quarter off the top of the backboard. Pretty impressive.
We didn't need him tonight.
I think that's exactly what you're talking about, Andrew. I'm a big fan of Jim Nantz. I think that he is an elite play-by-play announcer. I would want his voice on the Masters. I think it's really good on the NFL. Something about college basketball, I don't want him shouting like Gus Johnson, but Gus Johnson is what is the essence of the tournament. Like, he gets excited, like Iron Eagle. He's able to get that big voice and really get excited and play along here. And the sense of fun, it just doesn't seem to be coming through so far in this tournament with that number one group.
Yeah, it's a rhythm, and it's also from doing games. We talked about this earlier. Eagle had the North Carolina game with Caleb Love was going off. Eagle, I don't know. Did he write these things? If you were tweeting at me, I don't know the answer, but did he write these all down? All these love puns? But here's
Eagle's in his 50s. He has the dad jokes like on autopilot. Let's listen to that clip, Andrew.
Manic gives it up. Baycott swing. Love.
Caleb Love connects. Love is all around for the Tar Heels. He can't hunt a shot down faster. He couldn't get up to the offensive end. Roy Williams really loves it.
Yeah, he's having fun with it, and that's what ultimately it is. And he does it in like a subtle way, right? If you do that, you need to know what you're doing and be in control of the broadcast. He also makes these little references to things. Some of them I don't even get, but it's just like they're subtle where they're not going to annoy you if you don't understand them. But if you do, like the cowbell one that he had with the who was it, Dickinson, the fever, those things that people love that. And it's just subtle, and he's just prepared. He gives you little things, and he also leads his analysts in the right direction. And he's the best play-by-player. I wrote it last year. It's old news now, personally. If I were CBS, I'd have, like I said last year, I'd have him doing the Final Four. I think he's just superior on basketball.
I also want to give one other quick shout out. An old veteran. He used to do the ACC games on Jefferson Pilot, Raycom teleproductions down here in the DC market. But Dan Bonner, who is with Kevin Harlan and Reggie Miller, I think is possibly the most underrated college basketball analyst of my lifetime. I just think that he's really, really good at what he does. And he doesn't appear to have a big ego. He's just sort of like, he watches the game, he calls it as he sees it. And I appreciate Dan Bonner, and I'm glad to see him so visible as to be calling an Elite Eight game.
Yeah, one more props. We should give Bob Fishman, who's been directing forever, his Final Four. So respect to him for an outstanding career. And now it ends with this classic Final Four. It's going to be fun to watch. I'm looking forward to it. And what was also fun to watch is the women's, tournament so far. When we're taping it, this has just happened. The UConn women beat NC State. And you had some things that you noted in that game. Ryan Ruocco, Rebecca Lobo on the play-by-play. We'll get to them a little bit later. Called a week foreshadowing, possibly.
Foreshadow, I love it.
Little foreshadowing. That's called professional broadcasting. All you broadcasters listening. Anyways, what do you got, John?
First of all, that was the game of both tournaments. It was exciting. It went to 2 overtimes. But what really struck me was Holly Rowe, who has quietly turned herself into, I think, one of the best sideline reporters that are out there. Let's listen to how she interviewed the winning coach, Gino Auriemma, after the game.
I know people see that you're now going to 14 straight Final Fours, and they think this is just old hat to you. But, Coach, I see you trembling. You're shaking. This means so much to you. Why?
I think, I think when you're younger, you think, I got a million of these left in me, and you get to a certain age then where you go, I don't know how many of these I have left.
I mean, Andrew, that was classic. It wasn't like, how do you feel? Good. What does this mean to you? A lot. I mean, she said to Gino, I see you trembling. You're shaking. This means so much to you. Why? And then left the question open to where Gino, it's obvious they had a relationship. It's obvious that she knew she wasn't going to get a one-word answer. but the way she went into those questions, the way she asked those questions, she had a complete knowledge of the game that she was watching. She had a complete knowledge of the teams, of the sport. And she didn't have a producer, I don't think, in her ear, like sort of like trying to tell her what to say. She just sort of knew it. I thought that was one of the best post-game interviews I've ever seen, regardless of sports.
Well, I think one thing you really want to do is notice like what you need to be in the moment. Like, again, this is a different subject. And I think it showed Holly Rowe's experience, but like, I watched the White House hearings. This isn't about Biden or Trump or any of them, but just in general. And they all have like their questions written down. And it's always like, they never react. Like they're not, I feel like when I watch, maybe I'm sure there are times where people are actually listening, but you have to listen to what your subject is saying and then follow up. And that's where the magic is. That's how you break stories. That's how you get good information, is by listening and then reacting. And in this scenario, Holly Rowe did a good job. First off, noticing Gio Auriemma being emotional, and then seizing off that to ask him about that and to get him to open up more.
In fact, Biden had a press conference just this week where somebody asked him 3 questions at once, and he responded. He goes, well, you asked 3 questions. I'll answer. You let him pick the questions he wants to answer. It's like,
don't get me started on the multiple questions. Never ask multiple questions.
God.
If you want, take control of that press conference. Say, I have 2 questions. I'm going to ask them one at a time. Now, sometimes you can get somebody, you ask the one and then they take the mic away from you, or they don't. So you got to be a little careful with that. But when you ask multiple questions, you don't tell them which one you want to ask or whatever, they're going to take the easiest question. They're going to ignore the other 2. That'll happen 100 out of 100 times. If you go 3, I mean, 2's bad enough, but 3, that's ridiculous.
I mean, experienced reporters need to know that. I mean,
I know. I don't think I've said this a million times. Reporters do not think enough about their questions. That's the only weapon we really have. You should be thinking about how you're going to ask things, how you're going to approach things. And in general, I find that from my experience that people don't do that enough. That's my feeling. Let's move to topic 4, NFL streaming service, NFL Plus. We need more pluses. We got ESPN Plus. We got Apple Plus. We got New York Post Plus. You can get my newsletter every Mondays. Subscribe at New York Post Plus on the internet. Now we got NFL Plus. What do you got, John? Give us the lowdown on what this is.
All right, there's no SBJ Plus. All right, there's just SBJ.
Good for you. Good for you. Like, good for Peacock. Paramount, no, they got a plus.
Paramount has a plus. Somehow
anybody who doesn't have a plus, streaming. I give you props for no pluses.
It's not just the NFL. Every single league is looking into streaming. This is almost like 20 years ago when every single league was looking into launching their own TV network, and now it's like, oh well, we can control our content by putting it on streaming. What I find to be interesting about what the NFL is looking to do, and Brian Rolapp, the top business executive at the NFL, he didn't say that they're definitely doing NFL Plus, but he said it's something that they're considering, that they're sort of looking into. And it's a place where they have all the mobile rights, and they want to take those mobile rights and just put it in their own streaming service, and then possibly, sell that as part of their media package, or, they just want to be able to have more control. Imagine this, the NFL wanting more control.
I can't imagine that.
They want more control over their rights. And I think that's where this is, and how it comes out, whether it's going to be in market games, it's going to be highlights. It's basically the mobile offering, and they're going to package it up, call it NFL Plus, and then put a nice price tag on it for some media company to come and pick it up.
NFL Films is going to partner with a Hollywood studio. John, what is going on? Are we going to get movies?
So we've been reporting about, Amazon and Apple, and they're circling the NFL, trying to buy the NFL media business. Well, now they're taking a big part of that media business, potentially in mobile, and they're launching. They might be launching their own streaming service. And then they're taking another big part of that media business in NFL Films, and they're sort of exploring with Hollywood companies about setting up a partnership that would be a sports studio in Hollywood. And the reason for this actually goes back to the way you introed this segment, Andrew. All of the pluses out there, they all need content. I mean, it is right now, it's what John Skipper's doing with Meadowlark Media. It's what, all these different companies are doing. It's a great time to be in content because you have so many buyers that are spending so much money to try to bring as much content to their streaming service as they can. And this is a way for the NFL to really profit off of that.
All right. Is that going to be good?
That's what you call in the business. That's what you call
keep that in.
Pause.
We're not listening. I know you guys are listening to this now. John might be. Let's edit that. I said, "Will this be good?" Long pause.
A pregnant pause. Absolutely, yes.
It might be good. Maybe they'll produce one good thing.
Will NFL film stuff be good? Yeah, NFL stuff.
Yeah, NFL film stuff is good.
They're going to be really good.
Yeah. So, all right. All right. Final topic before we get to David Cohn. Apple TV Plus first game. Nationals, Mets. Max Scherzer's debut, most likely for the Mets. And you're going to have to tell your parents and your grandparents how to find it. It is going to be, no matter how many times we write it, no matter how many times we say it, I think that is going to be a bleep show. I have a feeling. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think people are not going to be happy, especially in New York. I know people love their Gary, Keith, and Ron. Gary Cohen, Ron Darling, and Keith Hernandez doing the games. Won't have that. Won't be able to find that on SNY. That is not going to go over well. Take that to the bank.
Look, this is a common theme. Welcome to streaming, baseball fans. This is what soccer fans have had to deal with. It's what tennis fans have had to deal with. It's what hockey fans have had to deal with. Now it's hitting baseball. And if you want to see all of the games and some of the important games, like Scherzer's first start with the Mets, that's going to get huge ratings.
Against the Nats, too.
I know, exactly, against a division rival. This is where everything's going. The cable bundle that we're getting away from, it looks so good now, doesn't it?
Yeah, we've said that forever. Me and you have been ahead of that. I think it's gonna be free at first, and then I don't think they're the first. I think 10 games. What I saw, I don't know if there are any Mets or Yankees, after that. But a big Met game to start that thing off. I get it. You have to cause friction to get people to subscribe to these things and to know about them. But I don't know. I'm gonna eased into it a little bit. I just think that's gonna be a bad start for Apple TV Plus. I don't think people are gonna like that. You may have to redo your next Who's Up with Jim Delorenzo. I don't know if he's gonna get it. I've never spoken to Jim Delorenzo. So sorry, Jim, but I don't know. You could be on the way down with that one. All right, John, time for the big get. It's David Cohn. Cohn, of course, won 5 World Series, threw a perfect game, and most importantly, was a go-to guy for reporters in the clubhouse. Now he's a stalwart on the Yes Network. He has a podcast for John Boy Media called Towing the Slab, and he will be on Sunday Night Baseball as a game analyst with Carl Ravitch and Eduardo Perez. That's a mouthful, David. You've done a lot. Now you're on the Marchand and Ourand Sports Media Podcast, and we appreciate it.
My pleasure. Now I'm really overexposed at this point. On this podcast, I don't know. It's only downhill from here.
Exactly. How many more jobs are you going to have?
I know, it's true. I mean, yeah, I'm supposed to be cutting back at this point in my life, I think, and I'm taking on more. So we'll see how it goes.
So, David, I want to get it started. Let's go back to your time as a player. Andrew described you as sort of a go-to player for reporters. You pitched in Toronto, in Kansas City. How much worse is the New York media?
Well, it's more of everything. I describe New York that way in general. It's just everything. There's more of everything, good, bad, all of it in between. The media coverage, obviously it's very competitive and you have to understand that. And I think you learn that at an early stage in my career, that if you're in front of your locker, good, bad, or indifferent, and you're going to get the benefit of the doubt. If you're honest, you're authentic, and you don't run and hide in the trainer's room when you have a bad game. I think that's the key.
If you were to spin that forward to today, so you did it during the 90s, certainly no Twitter then, no social media, the internet sort of in its infancy. How are the players reacting today to the media? What advice would you give them?
My advice would be that whatever you're learning along the way in these media training sessions that every organization now has, that there's a caveat to it that you need to understand. And that is, be honest and authentic and be yourself. You don't have to give the canned cliches anymore. People want honest answers. They want to see your personality. It's okay to be you. Don't worry about making a mistake. And it seems like that's been driven home in a lot of these kids up through the minor leagues as they've been trained of, be careful. The media is not your friend. And you don't give them anything that you don't have to. And I would counter that with just the opposite. Actually, it's your brand. It's your legacy. Be yourself, be authentic, be honest, and show them your personality a little bit. And you'll be surprised how far that can go.
Did you consider specific reporters to be your friend?
I think the game has changed in terms of just access. Obviously COVID has been a big part of that over the last couple of years, but we used to go out to the hotel bars with the beat writers. I used to have drinks after the games with the beat writers back in the 80s and the 90s. So we knew each other. There was a trust factor that was built up there. There were things you could tell them that would stay under their hat, so to speak, or on background, however you want to call it. That there was kind of this, this trust that was built up over the course of both on the job and then, outside the job. Maybe go to dinner. We'd see them at restaurants. So I think that's a thing of the past, and that's unfortunate. I think the players need to respect and get to know the personalities of some of the writers, especially the beat writers who are living the same life, except for the money, the same road life, maybe different hotels on the road, obviously, and looking for Marriotts and points, but it's the same life. It really is. They're grinding along with you in a competitive world, and players need to understand it's not about them. These writers have to compete amongst themselves too. They have a right to compete. They have a right to be good at what they do, just like you do as players. So I think that respect needs to be built up.
Yeah, I think, and also what you said kind of implies that there wasn't some transparency, like that the writers who knew you well were sort of, obviously they might have saw some things that they didn't write about that today because of social media. However, there are a lot of stories there that they found out about that because of the trust you built up with reporters, that you got to know, fans got to know you better. And some of the stuff obviously wasn't always good.
It wasn't always good, but it certainly aired. And what it did was it allowed the writers to add layers of nuance to whatever they were writing about certain individuals, because you knew them, because maybe you heard stories about them, and then whatever happened during the course of the season, you could read their body language. You could sort of read between the lines and understand the personality of the players better because you understood them, you knew them personally. So that made for better writing, that made for better storytelling, that made for better everything. And yeah, lines were crossed. Yeah, there were players that would get pissed off because, hey, wait a minute, yeah, you went a little too far with that one, but you could handle it because it was face to face in the clubhouse because there was access. You would see these writers in the clubhouse. You would see them on the road. You'd see them in the hotel bars. There was no hiding back then. Today, there seems to be a lot of hiding among the players. Even when I'm in the clubhouse, I look around and where are they? It's a bunch of writers waiting around the middle of a clubhouse, waiting for somebody to stand in front of their locker.
What we do in the media is actually, I would say, 95% is probably positive, probably helpful. And then there's the 5%, which I always tried to take care of the negative when I cover the Yankees. I'm just kidding. There is that part of it. So let me take you back though to let's get into your broadcasting career. When you were coming out as a player, you had, I think, an opportunity to work with SNY and then Yes. How did that go down, and how close did you come to working with SNY and doing the Met games? And now that's an acclaimed team with Keith Hernandez, Ron Darling, and Gary Cohen. How close did you come with being part of that crew instead of with Yes?
Very close. It was Kurt Gowdy Jr. and John Littner at the time that were the decision makers and at the top of the food chain, and they were starting up a new network. And I had tried to make a comeback and finish my career with the Mets in 2003, and it didn't go so well. And my hip gave out on me. I had to retire in May. So yes, I was pretty close. They needed a full commitment. They needed a full schedule. They wanted the regular crew to do most of the games, and I just wasn't ready to do that at that time. I had some personal issues at the time. I was going through a divorce. I certainly was not that far removed from playing. So my mindset wasn't ready just to jump in and do it full time. I kind of was looking for more of a part-time role, similar to what the Yes Network ended up offering on down the road.
And now you also have thought about, I think, managing or coaching. You interviewed with the Yankees a couple of years ago for the pitching coach job. How close do you feel like you came to that one? And where do you look at it in terms of the future for you?
Yeah, I'm not sure how close I came, but it was a serious interview. So I was thankful for that. They really put me through the car wash, as they say. And it was the entire organization and every department that I went through. So it was very thorough. I would have taken the job had it been offered. But I think that I'd sat out a little too long. Maybe from a technological standpoint, I needed some more continuing education, even though I cover that in broadcasting now in terms of analytics or sabermetrics or whatnot. If you've heard my broadcast, I have a growth mentality towards those things, but I would have had to play a lot of catch up in order to get up to speed. And that just was a little bit daunting, I think, for the Yankees to take that chance at that point. That's why they went with a young guy, Matt Blake, who can build a biomechanics laboratory that you need nowadays, that understands the high-tech tools that are necessary to use for the kids coming up through the minor leagues that they're used to training with.
Yeah, but he never pitched in the 7th game of the World Series, so I think
That was my argument to Cashman. Actually, that was my final line was, who do you want talking to Garrett Cole in the 7th inning of Game 7? So they didn't work.
All right, well, yeah, you can't get out your biomechanics at that point.
So you, were basically part-time with the S Network. You added in, the ESPN game. What made you want to sort of increase your workload and do something national?
It's Sunday night. That's one of the best seats in our sport in baseball. If you've got the World Series, either you're doing the World Series or you're doing Sunday night baseball. So it was just too good of an opportunity to pass up. I was at a crossroads in my career, and I've talked to Andrew about this. And am I going to jump back in and try to be a coach? Do I have to go to the minor leagues and get my feet wet again and get a little experience? Do I want to take the broadcasting effort to the next level? And, when Sunday night comes calling, ESPN says, hey, we want you to be in that booth on Sunday night. That's just an opportunity that I thought right here, right now, I better take it because it probably won't come around again.
Now, this has been going on a couple of years in terms of you and ESPN. How close, when it was Matt Vasgersian, A-Rod, I think Jessica Mendoza, she moved on to other responsibilities at ESPN. They were thinking about adding a third person, and I think it was, I reported, it was you. How close did that come to happening, and what was that process?
It was similar to interviewing for the Yankee pitching coach job. I went up to Bristol and went through their car wash, and they, believe me, they have one too up there. Several different layers that you go through talking to different heads of state, so to speak. And it was interesting. And I would have taken that job too. I would have jumped right in there with Alex and Matt if the opportunity presented itself. It didn't. There was some talk around maybe some other work up there at that time, a couple of years ago, maybe a Wednesday night or some other alternative position there. But that didn't really work with my Yes Network schedule. I'm under contract with the Yes Network, and they would only allow me to work on Sunday night at this point. They didn't want any sort of a competing game or a competing night where I'd be going against the Yankees or against the Yes Network working for ESPN. So Sunday night was the gig. It was sort of Sunday night or nothing. And here I am finally being able to sit in that booth and work with some great guys. Eddie's great. Eduardo Perez is just a funny, down-to-earth guy. And Carl Ravitch is a consummate pro. He's been around forever. And I've known him since the 90s, I think, from him doing Baseball Tonight. So I've always respected his work as well. He's going to be a great point guard for us. He's going to set us up right and left, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
How do you look at, Michael Kay as your partner or one of your partners on Yes, Alex Rodriguez, I know you've known for a long time. Now they're going to do an alternative broadcast called K-Rod. That's sort of like a Manning cast, sort of a different kind of broadcast. Do you look at that as competition? How do you look at that? You guys opening night, Red Sox, Yankees, you guys make your debut together as a trio. They're going to be on doing their K-Rod thing. How do you look at that?
I think it's going to be really interesting to see what Michael can do with Alex. I'm curious to see. Obviously there's a little bit of competition there when we're going head to head. It's you just can't deny that, but they're not going to be doing a full schedule. It's not going to be every Sunday night. They're probably going to do a handful, maybe 6 to 10, I believe. I'm not even sure the total amount. So we'll have plenty of games where it's just us. It's just the regular Sunday night booth. And it's a nice alternative. If you want the straight call of the game and you want to hear a pitcher and a hitter's, and Eduardo, the hitter, and me, the pitcher, talk about the game in a more traditional way, then you've got us. If you want something different, then I have a feeling that Michael's going to bring some things out of A-Rod. That's Michael Kay's forte, knowing him very well over the years. I think he's going to loosen up Alex a little bit and get him in a different format. And Alex has got a lot to offer. It's just the right guy bringing it out of him, I think, is a key.
100%. Hey, last thing for me, was there a favorite broadcaster you had growing up?
Yeah, I still remember, when I was a kid, listening to Saturday Games of the Week, whether it was Tony Kubek, was one of my all-time favorites. Actually, Joe Garagiola really, he made Louis Tion sound so dramatic, so exotic when he described Louis Tion and the way he pitched, and just the way he described the game was just remarkable to me as a kid. I was very impressionable. He made me love the game. Joe Garagiola and Tony Kubek made me study the game. So those two guys to me were the ones I really loved to listen to.
Andrew, I have one final question. We have the great David Cohn on the podcast. I'm from the DC area. I could take you back to your playing days. You have to agree that Jeffrey Meyer was the worst call in ALCS history. Wouldn't you agree with that, sir?
It would be hard to argue with that. I would think so. Yes, it was. I mean, Tony Tarasco was camped. He didn't even jump. He was reaching up to catch the ball. So yes, and the worst part about it was, and I love Richie Garcia, the umpire. He's one of the classiest guys out there. He was standing right there. So yes, I mean, it's hard to deny, that particular call was extraordinarily bad.
You just made my day. You made my day. Thank you.
Yeah, this is why, listen, David Cohn, I've written it in New York here. He's, to me, the best analyst, baseball analyst we got going. I think nationally, people are going to find that out on ESPN. So that's a good job by ESPN hiring David. And David, we really appreciate you joining us on the pod, and good luck this season in all your endeavors.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I've made it to this podcast now.
Thanks, David.
You're big
Everything
time.
else is downhill.
It's going to take a lot for an Oriole fan to say a Yankee great was great, but that was a good big get right there, Andrew.
Oh, you just liked it because he gave you, I mean, does that make you feel better? You still don't get the title.
No, I'm still mad. I'm still furious.
There's been Jeffrey Meyer stories every year for ever. He played baseball in college. I forgot where, small college, I think D3. And I have his number. Everyone in New York every reporter has his number, and things happen every once in a while. And you call Jeffrey Meyer up. He's he grew up, he's a grown man now. What a story that was. And you still harbor him. How many years? We're talking 96, 04. It's more like a quarter century.
First of all, he's a truant. And like David Cohen said, we put in a defensive replacement, Tony Tarasco, and he was just standing there waiting to catch a ball. I mean, the whole moment. Oh God, we could have won something.
Yeah, if there was replay, only if there were replay.
Well, let us go to our call of the week.
Call of the week.
All right, let me set the scene, Andrew. It's the NCAA Women's Basketball Tournament. NC State is down 3. Time's running out in overtime when Jackia Brown-Turner throws up a desperation three-pointer. Here's Ryan Ruocco on the call.
Here's Perez. 4 seconds left. Perez floats it. Brown-Turner for the tie. Got it to go with .3 remaining. Brown-Turner ties it at 77. My goodness, what a contest.
Look, that was just a fantastic call. He had the energy, he had the voice. Ruocco is ESPN's top play-by-play voice on the NCAA Women's Tournament, and you can see why.
Yeah, he also does the WNBA finals, so he's got those championship games. And look, that was fun. I mean, women's basketball, it's kind of had its moment for a while now, but I feel like it's kind of just about to go into even another level in terms of where the tournament is going, the women's tournament, in terms of popularity, in terms of the numbers, the ratings. I mean, it's been growing for a while. I mean, this isn't new. And I think Ruocco and Lobo, they have a nice chemistry together. They enjoy each other, and kind of a theme that we talked about in terms of these broadcasts. That comes across. We're all choosing to watch. So the people who are doing the games, they have to love it. And you hear that with Ruocco, and then obviously Lobo, one of the great players of all time. And I don't know. It was a little funny though. UConn was home for that. They're in Bridgeport. They're the 2 seed. NC State's the 1 seed. That had everyone chirping on Twitter, and I understandably so. Is in Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is about 50 minutes or so from Storrs, Connecticut, where UConn's located. But a great call. And Gino Auriemma and UConn go to their 14th Final Four in a row.
It's an incredible run that they've had. I mean, 14 is just an amazing number.
That's going to do it for us. If you get a chance, you like the podcast, you're listening this far, if you put the 5 stars on, that helps. Write a nice review. We appreciate it. We saw some from last week. Really nice of everyone. And thank you very much for listening. And of course, thanks to David Cohn for joining us as the big get.
Thanks for listening, everyone.